Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I am delighted to welcome an accomplished tech entrepreneur from Hyderabad, India, Mr. Pradeep Palelli. Pradeep, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh.
Pradeep is the co-founder and chief executive officer of Thanos Technologies Private Limited. He earlier co-founded Zolt Energy, which is a rooftop solar company. So, Pradeep, my first question to you is, tell me a little bit about your journey and what was the motivation behind starting Thanos Technologies?
Sure, Ashutosh. So, academically speaking, I passed out of BITS Pilani in 2008.
Mhm.
So I have a bachelor's in electronics and instrumentation from BITS Pilani, Rajasthan campus.
Mhm.
Shortly after BITS, I joined Infosys, an IT company where I was part of a support team.
Mhm.
But software IT was not really my cup of thing. In
Mhm.
fact, I attempted to get into an MS program in nanotechnology in US as well. There was very little academic background on that specific technology while I was studying. I could not secure an admission there. So I stayed back in India. I was part of Infosys for close to 2.5 years. But while I was there, fortunately, I was right across from ISB in Hyderabad. Infosys and ISB are opposite campuses. So I had a couple of friends there, and I used to constantly be part of certain activities or events that were happening. So you could say, in a way, I got interested on the business side of things, finance, administration, and all.
Mhm.
While at Infosys, I was lucky to have a couple of good project managers
Mhm.
who helped me get some understanding of how projects work
Mhm.
inside an IT company, be it planning or resource planning or finances. That's where you could say I had a little bit of entry on the business side. And around 2011, I would say, I got introduced to a friend of my project manager who had just started a sustainability consulting company.
Mhm.
The name of the company was Efficient Carbon, and one of the founders was Mr. Harsha Yadav. So that's where my entrepreneurial journey, you could say,
Yes.
started, where I joined as one of the managing or initial partners, you could say. And that went on for about a couple of years, where we did consulting for some companies on energy auditing, carbon management, sustainability, renewable energy. But towards the end of it, we realized that it is difficult to basically build a big brand when it comes to consulting in a very new domain, so to say, in carbon management sustainability, which was in the early stages at that point, thanks to the COP that happens, right, every couple of years across the world. So we were just getting started on that, but we could not really build something big on the consulting front. So that's where we moved out of it, and we started the same co-founder, Harsha, myself, and the new co-founder, Mr. Abhishek. The three of us started Zolt Energy. So this was in 2014. And like you said, it is a rooftop solar company where we installed hundreds of kilowatts, I think upwards of a megawatt on Hyderabad's rooftops, both domestic and commercial, uh, where storage options and non-storage grid connected rooftop solar power plants both were there. And I was the co-founder and CTO. Given my technical background and my interest on the technology itself, I used to design and set up these rooftop solar power plants.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but can we move to Thanos Technologies because that's the focus of our discussion today?
Sure. So this transition happened, right, where Thanos came across is towards the end of Zoet Energy journey, so to say, on myself. In 2015 mid, we started using drones for mapping rooftops in India for
Mm.
solar. That's when I got introduced to the concept of drones. And when I explored a little bit across the world, everywhere, every day, you could say a new application was coming up. So
Mm.
I started delving into what key problems are there as on date in India that require a different technology intervention. So
Mhm.
that's where I came across agriculture sector, where upon my discussion with a lot of farmers and people with farming backgrounds in Hyderabad, right? So friends and family, so to say, I was put forth these problems of
Mm.
labor shortage and inefficiencies in agriculture. So I felt that there has to be a technology intervention which solves all these issues in one go, including the health hazards that come out of exposure to these harmful chemicals.
Right.
So that's where drones came into the picture, and I wanted to build an actual solution that improves the way things happen.
Very
So that's the
interesting.
conception. Yeah.
And one of the things that, when I was reading about you to prepare for our conversations, one of the things that you say very strongly is about Atmanirbhar technology
Right.
or 100% made in India.
Right.
Uh, Tell me a little bit more about what has gone into creating a 100% made in India drone.
So we have a lot of capability, I could say, as in when I say we, not just Thanos, but in India itself, the people, we can create any kind of solutions. But granted, we are dependent on certain raw materials, as in when we say made in India or Atmanirbhar Bharat, right? It doesn't essentially mean 100% of the raw materials to the chip and
No.
circuit level need to
Yeah.
be made in India.
Yeah.
But essentially, you have to create something that works for the local domain or the problem, so to say. So that's where we set about designing and building a drone in India for India. So that's where the idea came in that compared to many other imported kits that are possible from outside neighboring countries also, we need to have some kind of a bit of a control on quality. If not, the raw material is something you can choose, but technology advances every year, every 2 years, you could say. So, but you need to have a control on the design so that you can adapt if something changes on the import front. And we've all seen how COVID did affect, right? So that was one example where supply chains can be hit, capabilities on raw materials can be hit. So we need to be self-reliant as an industry or technology itself, that if these kind of black swan events come up, right? So you
Correct.
should be able to do it in-house. So that's where the idea came
Very
about to
well said.
design and build.
Very well said. And how important is it, Pradeep, to establish an ecosystem for components and raw materials for drone manufacture in India? And I do understand there will always be some imports.
Right, right, right. So definitely the reliance on Indian ecosystem is important both on a quality front. Now, depending on the application, right? There is defense, there is other commercial survey grade, and then there's agriculture. Agriculture is a bit price sensitive. So you should be able to have local capabilities constantly try to bring down the pricing at scale and volume. So definitely that would mean you should be able to make most of the components, if not to the chip level, like you rightly said, right? Most of the components have to be locally made. In the initial days, a lot of components were imported. If not components, now we've moved to a stage where only raw material is imported. Components are still done in India. Now we are moving to a stage. So as on date, I could say we have more than 50% indigenous content in terms of raw materials also. But it is completely designed and built in India. But on the electronics front, we are moving to a stage where, for example, radios or flight controls, these kind of electronics are also made in India. And that is really important when it comes to the data security, for example, in defense, not just agriculture. I think shortly indigenization is going to happen in the electronics front also. And the fact that there is a local ecosystem that is slowly developing, be it automobiles or other sectors that you take. And unless that comes up, I think scale and pricing is something that would be difficult to change unless you have a local
And,
indigenization.
I've been speaking to several people, and drones are being manufactured by a lot of companies now. How
Right,
is Thanos differentiating itself as a
right.
drone manufacturer?
Right. So it's been an 8-year journey.
Yeah.
You could say we are one of the earliest drone companies in India and pretty much the first agri drone company in India since 2016. So now, fortunately, we started so much in advance that there was little to no competition at that point. So every day we were doing some kind of prototyping, proof of concept demonstration in the field. So we slowly, over a period of time, you could say, evolved the product or designs itself to suit the Indian agriculture market. And as I see, as and when competition is now increasing, like rightly said, majority of it is still based on imported kits with very little differentiation on the component front. So I would say, as on date, we are still one of the very few companies, if not the only company, that
Right.
has in-house design capability, in-house design drones.
Hmm.
And we are the first company. In fact, until last year, we were the only agri drone company using lithium-ion batteries,
Mhm.
agricultural drones, where most people thought that is not possible. So we've always been at the forefront when it comes to the design capability and also the energy source that we use, the raw materials that we use, carbon fiber and aerospace grade aluminum, for example, is not something most of the industry uses, where a lot of plastic parts are used, which means faster degradation, lesser stability. You could say more expenses for the customer also.
Yeah.
So these are two, three things that have
Thank you.
separated us.
Thank you. So, Pradeep, now I'm now going to move up to asking you some questions on agriculture because you're positioned as a drones for agriculture
Right.
organization. How do you see drones transforming the agricultural sector in India,
Right.
especially for smallholders and for rural farmers?
So 85% of Indian farmers, right, are the, I mean, 85% of Indian farmers are responsible for the small and marginal land holdings.
Yeah.
It may contribute to roughly half of the entire farm holdings, but these are the key critical market. So we cater to all classes of farmers, but when we talk about small and marginal farmers,
Mhm.
we, nor the entire industry, we don't see them as the buyers or procurers of the drones, rather end beneficiaries of the technology,
Mm.
which means a rural smallholder or marginal farmer doesn't necessarily need to buy the drone, but they can take services from another entity who has bought the drone.
Mm.
That is one way we look at this segment, but also groups of these small farmers and marginal farmers, what we call as farmer producer organizations or other kinds of mechanisms that are there. They are also potential customer who buys drones. Now, why would they buy or why would they use this technology? The reason this technology itself came about, why we are doing or most of our competition is doing,
Mm.
is to address one, the labor shortage, and two, inefficiencies in manual spraying, and three, health hazards.
Mm.
We've seen numerous cases, though a bit underreported in the media,
Mm.
where exposure to these harmful chemicals results in death or illnesses, right? Respiratory illnesses for the long term. So
Right.
these are three key problems that we are trying to address, and marginal small farmers being the end beneficiaries. Either as a group, they buy the drones and use it for themselves, or they get the services from a service provider and eventually reap all these benefits.
Right. And based on the last so many years of experience working in with farmers, are there any misconceptions farmers have about drones? And if so, how do you address these?
So, like any new technology, there will be a little bit of resistance,
Correct.
which is why it's the progressive farmers who always set the tone.
Mm.
Farmers who've always been at the forefront of technology, be it the first ones to adopt tractors or harvesters or rovers, they are the ones who typically are open to demonstrations. And that way, we had an early start where not just progressive farmers, but we worked with some of the biggest agrochemical companies in the world, the Bayers, the Syngentas, and all. We worked with them, and a lot of POCs happened. Now, the first misconception they have is the volume that we spray.
Right.
Given that a drone has a 10-liter tank, is it sufficient compared to the 150 to 200 liters
Mm.
that you traditionally spray using a knapsack sprayer or a Taiwan sprayer?
Mm.
So that is one of the first questions, and the simple answer we or the agrochemical companies give is, so in the Indian market, the understanding when it comes to spraying has broadly shifted from half liter or 1 liter of chemical per acre
Mm.
to 150 liters of total mixture per acre. I mean, a
Wow.
lot of people have got into that common
Mm.
jargon that
Mm.
you have to spray so many tanks or so many liters of water.
Mm.
But instead, what chemical companies or government typically recommends is how much chemical or the active ingredient per acre is what you need to spray.
Mm.
The water that you mix depends on the technology you're using.
Mm.
Knapsack sprayer is different, tractor is different. So drones come in at a 95% reduction of water stage. So
Okay.
this is one critical misconception that farmers have, that this won't work.
Mm.
So this is on the theoretical side.
Right.
And when they see a round of spraying, the water droplets that come out are so small and the spread is so thinly visible, they
Mm.
think it may not work. But once the 2-3 days of observation happen, each and every farmer would agree that this is much better than conventional farming, because in this case, due to the downwash from the fans or the propellers of the drone,
Mm.
even the bottom parts of the leaf and the bottom parts of the plant itself
Mm.
get covered, which is not possible in a manual spraying method.
I see. Okay.
And the crop specific, you have some misconceptions where If you take cotton, they think the flower dropping is there, which will result in lesser yield. But we have a very good testimonial from 2018 from a farmer in
Right.
Warangal Mandal who said not only was flower dropping not there, it was very minimal because when a person walks through the field, due to the brushing and rubbing against the trees, there is flower dropping. Even that is eliminated using a drone.
Wow.
But here, we should not assume that this is the case in 100% of the scenarios. It is dependent on how strictly you are adhering to the SOP and what stage of the crop you are spraying on. So that care needs to be taken care of by every drone service provider to ensure it is used effectively.
Very interesting. And when your service provider or some farmers buy your drone and they take it there, do you have any training program for the farmers? And of course, then there is this whole thing that I've been reading about. I don't know much about it. Is the drone didis,
Right.
who are a lot of women
Right.
are taking on this responsibility. Tell me a little bit more about how this is working, and are there any challenges?
Sure, sure. So, drones typically since 2021, they come under the regulations of Drone Rules 2021. Like you have Motor Vehicle Act and Aircraft Rules
Yeah.
Act, you have Drone Rules 2021. As per that, there are some compliances that we as an OEM have to meet, a type certificate or a UI number for the drone and all. On the user side or the operator side, everyone needs to have something called a drone pilot license. Now, a drone pilot license comes only after you've gone through 5 to 6 days of mandatory training. So you have these remote pilot training organizations, RPTOs, who, as per a DGCA set curriculum, they do 5 days of training. So even a completely new person to the technology who's never laid their hands on a drone, in those 5 days, you get the basics of what a drone is and how do you operate. Basically, the movements and the sticks and all, you understand. But then comes the actual application. So this is like getting a driving license, but what do you do after getting the driving license with the vehicle? So that's the training that we as OEMs provide. And that is also something for either farmers or service providers. It's a proper program that we have developed where we do anywhere between 5 to 10 days of training to get them up to speed.
Okay.
After that, it's all practice, practice, practice.
Yeah.
As in the same way, after a few years of running, a bike or a car is
Correct.
more of a reflex action for us. It's
Correct.
all practice. The drone DD is a more recent scheme last year that the government has launched, where I think 15,000 women self-help groups will be given drones in the next 2 years. And it is happening in phase-wise manner. We are in the second phase of discussion, I believe, wherein the similar extensive training programs and supported by AMC, training during the license and after the license, hand-holding support, and after that, making sure that everywhere there is a drone in that district or on a state level basis, there's a service network also established by the OEM as per their responsibility to make sure that a new technology with an entirely new person is utilized in the most effective manner. So there's a proper structured approach that both the government and industry are taking towards that.
Very interesting. So, Pradeep, you were just a few minutes back telling me about how drones can be used for pre-harvest, spraying, etc.
Right.
How can drones support post-harvest activities such as storage and logistics?
Right. Post-harvest, so far, I would say logistics-wise, drones are a bit in the early stages that when it comes to delivery or logistics, right now, medical delivery is the foremost applications that drones are catering to in the northeast and difficult areas. Now, similar things, which is what the e-commerce industry is also exploring, is not that to the end customer is what you deliver the items, food or groceries, but essentially from hub to hub. Now, a similar thing can be imagined in the future where in agriculture also, hub to hub or to cold storage or the storage points, the fastest manner in which perishable goods can be transported, let's say, given there is a fixed time in that, is where drones might come into the picture. But I think in agriculture logistics, it is a bit farther away. But I would say pre-harvest and insurance applications where the crop health monitoring is done, drought-related assessments are done, disaster response, all this is where in agriculture right now, drones either as a automation or spraying application or intelligence or data gathering applications are being used.
Mm.
Post-harvest, as on date, very little work has been done.
Okay.
But these are some of the things in terms of hub-to-hub storage, etc., can be imagined for the future.
Amazing. Pradeep, I have time for two more questions for you. My next question is, what role does data collected from drones play in enhancing agricultural productivity and sustainability?
Right. So this is basically one of the first things that we delved into, along with trying to build a drone
Mm.
for spraying application. We were using one of those camera drones to actually gather data.
Mm.
Now, starting all the way from planning a greenfield farm, let's say someone is planning a field for the first time. How do you see the land sloping in order to ensure the water movement path is planned, the gradient or the slope, all the way up to during the season to understand the nutrient shortage or damage due to pest attack, any of these, where ultimately it will result in inputs or the insights from the data analysis, which will result in you having to take an action such as additional fertilizers or spraying pesticides in a more precise manner. So that's where the precision agriculture concept comes into the picture. Anything in agriculture, when it comes to drones, we believe comes under two categories. One is intelligence and other is automation.
Right.
Now, automation is what we are doing, solving the labor problem and efficiency problem. But intelligence is where data comes into picture. And when you combine these two, is where precision agriculture loop is closed.
Very interesting. And my last question for you, Pradeep, given all the work that's being done in the area of drones and the government is supporting it, and organizations like yours are really at the cutting edge of technology, Make in India, is there a way to measure the economic benefit of using drones for Indian farmers, especially for the small and marginal farmers?
Sure. So as on date, we are at a stage where the technology penetration is increasing. Benefit for the farmer also. Now, the way drones spray, it results in two economic benefits. One is reduced input usage. When I say reduced input usage, where a recommendation is to spray, let's say, half a liter of chemical or pesticide. Traditionally, the farmer ends up spraying 600 ml, 700 ml, 800 ml. Because over a period of time, due to inefficiency, they end up spraying more. Now, with a more uniform and efficient application like a drone, technology like a drone, you don't need to overspray. You need to spray as much as that is required. So there you end up saving inputs. The traditional understanding is that anywhere between 20 to 30% is what you can save.
Right.
That depends on crop to crop. Other thing is in enhanced yield or the output. And this comes from the fact that you identify and counter the pest attack or nutrient deficiency in the fastest manner possible. Where previously you used to take an entire day to spray 4 to 5 acres with 2 or 3 labors. Today we can spray the same acreage in half an hour to 45 minutes.
Wow.
Which means if you have a bigger field, the pest, because it keeps growing on a day-to-day basis, that today if it is covering 10% of the field, by tomorrow it may be 100%. So how quickly do you address that issue? Even the shortage of nutrients, which can result in underdeveloped crop also. All these on a timely basis, detection and addressing can result in enhanced productivity for the farmer.
Amazing. And on that note, Pradeep, I just want to say thank you so much for speaking to me about your journey. What a fascinating journey you've had. Thank you for talking to me about Thanos and the first, and 100% made in India drone. I learned many new things from you on drones and drone technology and all the work that you are doing, not just to create the drone, but also to keep moving towards 100% self-reliance or Atmanirbharta. Then we had a very fascinating conversation on drones for agriculture. And, I've only been reading a little bit, but talking to you, I think I learned many, many new things that drones can do for agriculture in our country. Thank you again for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you, Ashutosh. Thank you for your time and the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.